Hello, humans. I have here two cases where the husband wants to get a concubine because they want a male heir, and the wife hasn't been able to do it for one reason or another. Of course, we all know that sometimes it's male infertility, but they never thought that way. So here we go. These are both cases from the Ming Dynasty. The cases were published 20 or 30 years apart, so they're really the same time period. Uh, yeah, maybe 40 years apart, something like that. So anyway, this first case is from Ke Yao, which was a book by Xue Ji, a pretty well-known Ming Dynasty doctor. And he wrote a book. Many people would say gynecology, but actually in this book, he talked about all kinds of things that they thought were common in women and not just reproductive stuff. But this one is a reproductive case. By the way, this book is already translated and published by Chinese Medicine Database, translated by me. So, if you want the book, it's available. Anyway, so here's the case. It's in volume one, in the very first section of volume one, the 18th case. Not that you care, but that's how I kept track of the cases. And so here it goes. The wife of a private tutor named Qian was 30 years old, but they still had no heir. They get married even at the age of 16, certainly by 20. And so it's been a long time, and there's still no heir. So this really doesn't tell you, were there girls being born, or did she have miscarriages, or did the children die? We don't know. This doesn't necessarily mean that she was infertile. It just may have meant that there was no son who qualified to be the heir. Her periods trickled at no particular time. So irregular menstruation, and it sounds like with the word trickle, it sounds like maybe there wasn't a good flow, a strong flow. Husband and wife dwelled separately for several years. He was a private tutor, so he was living in some rich person's house, teaching their sons. And so he lived apart from her. Maybe I'd go home and visit every so often. We don't even know if they're in the same city. So this is contributing also to the problem, since he's not around to, for her to get pregnant. So in any case, so it's been a long time, more than a decade. He has no heir, and so he's planning on getting a concubine. So, mostly we know about concubines from the male's point of view. There's not a lot of writing from the woman's point of view that comes from that time period. But, if you were wealthy, you could have a couple concubines, and you could have them for pleasure, or you could have them to provide you an heir if the wife wasn't, giving son. And so he's thinking about getting a concubine. Maybe he has both things in mind. He can have some fun, he can have a younger woman, and he can also maybe make a child, So he's planning on it. And he goes to see Xue Ji, and he tells Xue Ji all of that stuff. And Xue Ji says, this is constrained anger damaging the liver with spleen deficiency and fire stirring. So how does he know this? Like, it doesn't really say. Did the husband start talking about how his wife is so angry, or did Xue Ji just assume that the wife is angry? Actually, Chinese men and in general, and Xue Ji in particular, had an idea that women are by nature angry. people. Is it any wonder the kind of circumstances they had to live under? But anyway, he saw her as anger that wasn't being expressed. So, that of course causes liver qi constraint. Liver attacks the spleen. So now the spleen is deficient. And because all this qi is constrained and anger is a hot emotion, then heat builds up. And so he says, blood cannot return to its channels. That's not the way we would say it today, but, so he thinks there's spleen deficiency, which can make bleeding, but also there's heat in the blood, which can make it boil over. Maybe he's hedging his bets and can't decide which it is. He hasn't examined her, he hasn't felt her pulse. And so this is inability of the liver to store and inability of the spleen to contain both things. Spleen isn't holding the blood in the vessels and the liver isn't storing blood. So she's bleeding irregularly. We should clear liver fire, meaning cool liver fire, and supplement spleen qi. Okay, so that's his treatment principle. Then I gave the man, the husband, Mr. Qian, 4 doses each of 2 formulas, Jiaowei Guipi Tang. So probably Guipi Tang is return the spleen decoction, which is going to take care of the spleen deficiency. Jiaowei depends on what he means by that, but is probably adding clear heat herbs to it, which is funny. He doesn't have Jiaowei Xiaoyao San, he has Jiaowei Guipi Tang. Anyway, the other formula is Xiaoyao San, which of course helps move liver qi and nourishes blood. And so he's got herbs to cool her fire. He's got herbs to strengthen the spleen. He's got herbs to help force the liver. If you've watched one of my previous videos, there's a video with cases from Xue Ji where he has people take formulas at different times of the day. And here he doesn't specifically state that, but based on my knowledge of him, because I've translated a couple of his books, and he frequently has a formula that works on qi in the morning and another formula that works on blood or yin in the evening. So probably she was supposed to take Xiaoyao San in the mornings and Guipi Tang in the evenings, because that would help her sleep and so forth. And Xiaoyao San would help qi get moving in the morning. So that's his treatment plan. So Mr. Qian took these formulas home and explained to his wife, saying, hey, if you take them, this disease will recover on its own and you'll become pregnant, and then I won't need a concubine. So, why is he a little reluctant to take a concubine? It's expensive. And also it can cause disharmony in the house. The wife and the concubine sometimes don't get along very well. Sometimes the wives are open, and actually they're always taught jealousy is a bad emotion. Women shouldn't be jealous. You need to push down your jealousy. Well, of course, the men are going to say that because they want what they want. And of course, it's easy for the women to be jealous, although some might be happy not to have sex with their husband anymore. Okay, that's your job. I'm the power in this house, and you're the one for sex with the husband. Yeah. So anyway, she takes the herbs, and consequently the disease recovered, and the next year she gave birth to a son. So he has an heir, so he doesn't have to take a concubine. He can still mess around outside. He can still, go have fun outside, but he doesn't have to bring another woman into the house. Okay. So that's the first case for today. There's the second case for today is also similar situation where the husband wants a concubine, but a big difference between these two situations is this case was written by Xue Ji, a male doctor, and the next case is from Tan Yunxian's book, Miscellaneous Records of a Female Doctor, also another book I've translated and is published by Chinese Medicine Database. You can buy it if you want the book. Also, you may know Lisa C. recently wrote a novel that is a fictional, Tan's life in fiction, some of which comes directly from things we know about her, and some of which is totally made up. But anyway, here we have a husband who wants an heir, but the woman now, the doctor is a woman, and so her feelings for the woman, her assessment of the woman has a different perspective. Okay, so after giving birth 4 times, a 36-year-old woman miscarried 3 times when she was 3 or 4 months into pregnancy. And because the husband was wealthy and high ranking, he was profoundly worried about not having a son. Okay, so she gave birth 4 times. We don't know, were they all girls? Did they die, in childhood? Was there something disqualifying them? For example, if there was some kind of, defect in a boy child, they may not consider that the heir. And so we don't really know about these 4 times, but now she's had 4 live births that were not a healthy son, and or the son didn't survive, or wasn't a son. And then she's miscarried 3 more times, which is hard on her. I mean, this is difficult, and she's 36. She's not too old yet, but she's older. Especially in those days, when women might marry at 16. Okay. So because her husband was, oh yeah, I think I already said that. Her husband was wealthy and high ranking, so he really wanted a son to be his heir. And so he wanted to take on a concubine because, he wanted to have someone who could be successfully pregnant. The woman discussed it with me. I'm Tan Yunxian, I'm a woman doctor. And so she can talk directly to the woman. Note in the previous case, Xue Ji didn't even see the patient. And even if he did, there was very strict rules about interaction between women and, higher class women and unrelated men. So she would have difficulty expressing herself to Xue Ji if, even if she had been in the consultation, probably the husband would be answering the questions for her. And, so it'd be from his point of view, and she probably wouldn't express her feelings in front of her husband, and she probably wouldn't express her feelings to an outside male like the doctor. So here we have a woman doctor, and then the woman feels more free to discuss her heartbreak. So the woman discussed it with me. She didn't have a plan to block, the husband getting a concubine, but enduring all the sorrow and anger was, too much for her. It really made her so sad and so angry at the same time. And maybe she's in part angry at the husband, but maybe she's also angry at herself. People take on blame for things that can't be helped. And she's so sorrowful that she couldn't do what was considered her main duty, and sorrowful that she's lost so many pregnancies and children. And she has just so much emotion, and we can see the emotion here. Whereas Xue Ji just said, she's angry, and prescribe based on that. And here we can, see we have a window into her heartbreak a little bit. Besides this, matters of running the household were quite numerous, which further added to her inability to become pregnant. Sounds like she's the oldest woman in the house, so now she's like the matriarch. Probably her mother-in-law had already passed, and so now she's in charge of the house. And if you have a big house, this was a wealthy, high-ranking husband. So there are a lot of affairs that she was in charge of, to manage. Not that she's doing all the work herself, but, she had to manage a lot of stuff for a household that could have 50 people in it. I mean, we don't know. It could have less, it could have more. And so she's, running herself ragged. She's tired. She's frustrated. She's angry. She's sorrowful. So, one of the differences you find in Tan's book, in her cases, is that she really empathizes with her women patients, and she explains their sorrows and their situation, and it feels like with compassion, and whereas with Xue Ji, she's just another angry woman. Women are all angry, and she's another angry woman. So my opinion, Tan's opinion, was that this was taxation, excessive work from running the house, and also being worn out from so many pregnancies, and anger, and internal fire was stirred up from emotional damage. And that fire made blood move recklessly, which caused the miscarriages. And even though this page doesn't mention sorrow, we saw that she also acknowledges the sorrow. So I gave her some herbal pill that, shangfu is the main ingredient that's used a lot in gynecology. In another visit, I gave her Taojing Ichitang. So Taojing is regulate the menses, regulate menstruation, and Ichi is boost qi, decoction. And she always gives the book, the source that she got these formulas from. And so if you want to know exactly what's in these formulas, sorry, I don't feel like talking about that. In this video, these case videos are not really about like the details of a specific herbal formula. For me, they're more about understanding how doctors, saw the patient, how they diagnosed them, how they felt about them, what the patient's lives were like. And so you're going to have to look up these formulas yourself if you want to know the details. But she added some herbs to it, Fuling, white Fuling, Chuanshang. She added more Shangfu, or, the second formula may not have had Shangfu, and she added more Shangfu and Huangqin, cooling herb. So moving and warming, the couple moving and warming herbs, but to counteract them, and because she had fire, a cooling herb, and Fuling, maybe she had some damp, maybe she just thought that would make the formula more harmonious. Anyway, a half a year later, 6 months later, she was pregnant. And then because she was at risk of miscarriage, she'd had 3 miscarriages. Tan gave her a powder to calm the fetus. And yeah, this is not, she didn't list this as a specific formula, but this formula was used a lot by Judanshi for calming the fetus and for pregnant women who might be in danger of miscarriage. So what's in it? This Xue is like, means rat tail, Huangqin. So I guess it's long, thin pieces. It's something specific, but it's Huangqin. So, that's cooling, and that's an herb that calms the fetus. She wants it vinegar processed maybe to help astringe and hold in. And then Baiju, which is, to supplement qi. One is a cooling herb, one is a warming herb. And supplement qi and transform dampness, and drain fire, and astringe a little bit. And so these were powdered, and each dose is about 7.5 grams of the powder, that would be mixed with a decoction of Zisuye, which is another herb that calms the fetus. And so that was what she needed to take regularly during pregnancy. So then in the 5th month of the next year, which would be around June in the Western calendar, she gave birth to a son. So both cases had a happy ending due to intervention with the doctor, but there's also Tan seems to not exactly do psychotherapy, but the woman gets to pour out her sorrows and be understood and be heard and not just be told, oh, you're angry. You shouldn't be jealous. Women are always angry and jealous. You shouldn't be jealous. Like that's basically the message of the male doctor, but the woman doctor has so much sympathy. I can see why, Tan became popular among women in her region, because the experience was so much better than that with a male doctor. Even today, a lot of women would much rather have a female doctor, especially for things related to reproduction. Well, that's my two cases for today, and I'll talk about something else next time.